Hello, this is Liz, one of Derry Public Library's resident film experts, and I'm coming to you live, pre-recorded. I'm going to be off Friday, but I still want to get the Freebie Friday in. So we are talking about free movies today. Also, special guest, we have my little cat Hilo just sleeping on the chair. Maybe he'll do something cute, maybe he won't. So we have a mix of documentaries, fun 80s movies, sci fi, and a couple of making of documentaries. The first one I'm going to talk about is a documentary I saw a few years ago called Gen Silent. This is about older LGBTQ people who were in nursing homes, and it's a very sad situation because in many cases these are people who lost their families, abandoned them or disowned them, and then there's also the added layer of they have to kind of stay in the closet because depending on what type of care facility they're at, they could be refused service or thrown out. It's something that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about LGBTQ rights. Usually the focus is kind of on younger issues, and that's the issue with a lot of kind of activism. But there are still older queer people who exist, and there is I mean, hopefully not so much with the coming generations, but definitely for people who came out in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, they've been alienated for a good amount of from their family, and it is the idea of who can care for them. So it's a very eye-opening documentary, but definitely a somber one. Up next, something a little more uplifting. We have Hoosiers, the a basketball movie. I am not a big sports ball person. I think I've seen this once, but I do know that a lot of people like this film. So I wanted to let you know it's free on Pluto TV. I do love Gene Hackman, though. We recently watched The Birdcage, and I really wish he would go back to acting. Welcome to Mooseport wasn't that bad, Gene. Up next, a movie that I love. I know it's silly. I know it's doesn't make sense, but it's just so much fun to watch, is Flashdance. The Jennifer Beals plays a welder by day, dancer by night. She wants to get into a dance conservatory. It really is a ridiculous little movie, and it's one where if you think about it for 2 seconds, it's like, this is kind of silly, but I don't care. It's got a lot of style. Jennifer Beals is an incredibly charismatic performer, and even though it's very obvious they're body doubles, I think the dance numbers are great, and I love the soundtrack. I have it. I'm one of those music peaked in the 80s types. That's a good amount of the music on my iPod. Up next, speaking of kind of silly movies and genres that I like, When the Bow Breaks is on Tubi. So if you are a fan of the great, treacherous, nanny domestic film Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which great movie, absolutely great movie. If you like Lifetime movies with a budget and actual competent acting and filmmaking. So When the Bow Breaks is right in line with that. It's a family. It's a husband and wife. They're looking for a surrogate. They find a woman that is great. And then it turns out, oh no, she's not who she says she is, and she's definitely nefarious. It stars Regina Hall, who I really like. She was in last year's Support the Girls, which was really good. Again, it is a ridiculous, silly movie. It's right in the vein of Lifetime. It's just two notches up. But again, sometimes we like that stuff. It's like a Milky Way bar. You don't eat it every day, but sometimes you just want one. Also on Tubi, a far better movie, but maybe not one for everybody, is Scream. Yes, that's right. Wes Craven's Scream, the movie that really gave horror the shot that it needed, or adrenaline shot that it needed. So some background: horror has been around. There's a bunch of different types of horror. Horror had a bit of definitely a prestige moment in the late 60s, early 70s with stuff like Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, and it definitely had a heyday in the 80s with slasher films. But the thing is, with the slasher films came horror being seen as a junk genre again, which it was seen as earlier. So Wes Craven comes along and he wants to challenge himself and make a different type of movie. And he makes Scream, which is a meta movie. So you have teens who kind of know, hey, there are certain rules that you need to follow if you want to live in a movie. I think it's a great little film. It definitely has violence in it, but if you're someone who doesn't like horror movies, Scream might be a movie that you like, because there is a good script, there's a good plot. It's not just about the kills, it's not just about a killer chasing someone. There's actual dramatic tension in there. And this really raised the bar for what horror movies could be, and similar to what people like Jordan Peele and Ari Aster are doing right now for horror. It's sort of it just kicks it. I don't want to say kickstarted a renaissance, because unfortunately all that came after that were a lot of copycat movies, but it still, I think, exists as a high watermark for the genre. Um, Going from horror to, I would say, kind of spooky comedy, there is a documentary on Crackle called Cleaning Up the Town, and this is a documentary about the making of Ghostbusters and the legacy. So if you're like me, I definitely like the movie Ghostbusters. I'm not as possessive about it as some people are, like the ones who got really angry when Ghostbusters was remade. Like, calm down. But I think this is a lot of fun. I really do love making of movies, especially when it's a movie like Ghostbusters, where there is a lot of special effects and there were a lot of practical effects at the time. So for me, seeing how that stuff was made is a lot of fun. So going on to YouTube, again, free with ads, All Is Lost. I've recommended this video at the library before, and that is Robert Redford. There is almost no dialogue. Robert Redford is pretty much the only person in this movie, and this is a risky type of movie to make. Even with a film like Castaway, which is, for the most part, just Tom Hanks, you still have segments at the beginning of the end, which features other people. But Robert Redford is a performer that can absolutely carry a film by himself, and I think it's fantastic. This was supposed to be his last film until he did Old Man and the Gun, and then that was supposed to be his last film. Robert Redford says he's going to retire a lot. I don't know if he ever will. But he's a performer that, as long as he's acting, I'm very happy, because he's a great performer. Also on YouTube is a presidential biopic about a president that's still living. So this is South Side with You, and this is based on Barack Obama and Michelle's first date. It is still kind of weird that there is a biopic about a living president, and not in I don't know, it just seems like that should happen to presidents that aren't here anymore. But it actually doesn't romanticize them too much. It tries to stay very down to earth. I think the two main performers are absolutely great. I still don't know where they found an actor that looked a lot like Barack Obama. I'm kind of like, I wonder what that that's good casting. Tika Sumpter is very good as Michelle, and at the end of the day, it's really not about politics. It's just about two people going out and enjoying each other's company and finding that they connect with each other. And I think that's something a lot of people like. That's why people like to watch romantic films, apparently. I don't really like to watch a lot of them. My movie date night is The Thing, which will bring us to my final film recommendation. So this isn't a technically YouTube free with ads movie, but it is one that is on YouTube, and it's another making of. And it's called The Thing Terror Takes Shape. And this was filmed in, I think, 1997. And it features the effects people like Rob Bottin, Kurt Russell, talking about how the movie, 1982's The Thing, came to be. And again, I am a sucker for this stuff, because I'm like, oh, this is all model work. This is special effects. This is practical effects. And I think documentaries like this, what they ultimately do is, it's not just, hey, here's how it's made. It shows the hard work that goes into this. And for someone who especially likes genres like horror and sci-fi that are all, in many cases, dismissed as junk and low art, seeing the amount of work that goes into that and people sculpting models, it's something where it proves, no, this isn't something that someone took a video out and made in their backyard. Of course, there's some movies like that, and I love those too, but something like this, John Carpenter made a work of art. It might be scary and kind of gross, but it is still a work of art, and I think it is a great tribute to the people who worked to bring an incredibly practical effect heavy film to life, both in front of and behind the screen. It's called The Thing Terror Takes Shape. All you gotta do is type it into the search bar. It's there in full. It's actually good quality. Maybe it'll inspire you to seek out The Thing. I really love that movie. It's my top five. But hopefully, you'll watch one of these movies, and I will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend.